In a certain kingdom there lived an old king. He wasn't actually that old, but he pretended to be weak and feeble because he was tired of ruling the state and wanted a rest from royal worries. So he summoned his 3 sons to his bedroom. Lying on his bed, to show his children how pitiful his condition was, he announced in a barely audible voice, "My children, you can see how weak I am. I can hardly speak. The time has come for one of you to become my successor. One of you must marry and become king." He looked at his sons, expecting their reaction, but the heirs just exchanged glances and stared at the floor. They were all handsome, seemingly not stupid, but if you looked closer, none of them were particularly sensible. The eldest son, Edward, had read every book in the royal library and wrote decent poetry, but for the past 2 years he had been struggling with a poem and just couldn't finish it. He locked himself in his room, sitting like a spider in a web. When he came to the royal table, everyone started sneezing. He was so covered in dust. The queen initially tried to extract her son from the web. She took him fishing, to art galleries, to botanical gardens. Nothing helped. Edward was interested in absolutely nothing. The queen gave up her attempts and resigned herself. The middle son was named Richard at birth. But because of his restless nature, the prince earned the nickname Troublemaker as a child. Over time, everyone forgot his real name and the nickname became his name. From childhood, Troublemaker learned to fence with swords. He amused himself by hiding behind curtains and poking everyone who passed by. When he learned to shoot a bow, Troublemaker invented a new pastime. He climbed onto the palace roof and shot the hats off passing nobles. Thank goodness his arrows had blunt tips, otherwise he might have hurt someone. As he grew older, the prince's temper became increasingly uncontrollable. He spent his days somewhere with his friends, and whenever a big brawl broke out, Troublemaker was always the instigator. The youngest prince, Robert or simply Robbie, did not like reading like Edward, nor fighting like Troublemaker. He was drawn to music, dancing, and pretty, cheerful girls. "Edward, your father wants you to be king," announced the queen. She thought her son would be happy and the younger ones disappointed, but the opposite happened. Troublemaker and Robbie smiled and sighed with relief, while Edward looked like a man condemned to death. "Why me?" he asked. "I don't want to and can't get married. I won't marry until I finish my poem." "Then you'll die a bachelor," Robbie declared gloomily. "Then you, Troublemaker, must become king," suggested their mother. His eyes bulged. "I can't. What kind of king would I be? I'd declare war on someone immediately. And a wife? I'd kill her in the first argument." The queen looked at Robbie, and he immediately stopped laughing. "And don't look at me, mother. I won't be king. You've said it yourself many times. Nothing good will come of me. I'm a good-for-nothing, and it's too early for me to marry. Shame on you." The queen was near tears. "Your father is dying, and you?" Edward and Troublemaker guiltily lowered their heads, while Robbie looked away and noticed a painting on an easel, covered with a cloth. He removed the fabric and froze. The girl depicted in the portrait was so beautiful. She looked straight at him with expressive dark eyes and smiled slightly. "Wow!" was all he could say. The brothers turned and stood stunned by the stranger's beauty. "Who is that?" Robbie asked admiringly. Father King waved his hand, forgetting that he was too weak for such a complex gesture. "That's the neighboring princess, Hortensia. I wanted one of you to marry her. She would make a fine queen." "You know, father, I've changed my mind. I agree to be king," Robbie declared. "Too young," objected Troublemaker. "I'll marry her." "You said you'd beat your wife and wage war on anyone," Robbie defended. "I'll reform. No problem." "I don't understand what you're arguing about," Edward said with a soft smile. "I'm the eldest, so I'll be king." "And your poem?" the younger brothers shouted in unison. "I'll finish it on the way to the bride." "You're not going anywhere," cried Troublemaker, drawing his sword. "My children, stop!" the queen screamed as Robbie rushed to separate them, and a fight broke out. "All 3 of you will go to Princess Hortensia. Let her choose one of you. And please, no fighting," their father ordered sternly, sitting up in bed, forgetting he was mortally ill. And so, having fallen in love with Princess Hortensia at first sight, the brothers set off. Each was confident in his own irresistibility and that the princess would choose him. Leaving the palace at dawn, the princes stopped at a crossroads. All 3 roads led to the neighboring kingdom, but one was straight and 2 were roundabout. They could have all taken the straight road, but they had already argued so much that they knew a fight was inevitable. So they drew lots, pulled 3 slips of paper from a hat, and parted ways, agreeing to meet at the inn near Princess Hortensia's palace. Edward was luckiest. He took the straight and shortest road. Just past the border began the famous royal cherry orchards, enclosed by a high fence. Suddenly, from behind the fence came a pleasant female voice reading poetry aloud. Edward stopped his horse and listened. He knew the poem by heart but listened as if for the first time. She read so well, but suddenly the girl stumbled and fell silent. The prince couldn't resist and climbed over the fence to prompt her with the missing words. Among the trees he saw a small gazebo. Inside sat a beautiful girl with sad brown eyes, clearly recently crying. Seeing Edward, she was not frightened but rather surprised. "Forgive me, miss, but allow me to remind you of the lines of this beautiful love poem you were reciting so wonderfully." "Ah!" exclaimed the girl. "How I wish someone would love me like that, strongly, truly, and for life." She was so fragile, tender, and sad that Edward wanted to embrace and comfort her. With great effort, he restrained himself. The prince took a book of poems from his travel bag and handed it to her. "Take it. I want to give you this collection. The poem you were reading is in here." The girl's eyes shone with joy. "Oh, I love poetry so much. Thank you. I don't even know whom to thank. What is your name?" "That doesn't matter," Edward said modestly. The prince decided not to introduce himself. After all, he was on his way to marry. Bidding farewell, Edward continued on his way. The middle brother drew a slip that said forest, meaning he had to take the left road through the woods. Troublemaker rode among the tall trees, looking around bravely. He eagerly awaited an attack by forest bandits, having not fought anyone all day. Then, among the trees, he heard the clash of swords. The prince saw a carriage on the road and a person in a red cloak fighting off 3 bandits. That they were bandits, the prince had no doubt, 3 against 1. "Hold on, sir. I'm coming to help." The person in the red cloak glanced at him from under a low-pulled hat and continued fending off attacks. "Don't interfere, sir," he said. The voice was very young. Troublemaker grew angrier. 3 men fighting a boy, he simply had to help. Within 2 minutes, the bandits were defeated and tied up. Troublemaker expected gratitude from the young man, but instead, he glared angrily at his rescuer and began untying the bandits. "What are you doing?" the prince exclaimed. "They'll attack you again." The youth in the red cloak snorted and removed his hat. From underneath cascaded a lush torrent of long chestnut hair. Troublemaker was dumbfounded. It was a girl. "You acted with the best intentions," she said. "So I grant you your life. But it's better if you don't cross my path again." The eldest bandit approached Troublemaker. "Count Norton," he introduced himself. "These are my sons and my youngest, Victoria. Don't be angry with her. We had an agreement. If Victoria could defeat the 3 of us, she would go to the capital for the festival. And you showed up at the wrong time. But I admire your skill and invite you to my castle for a meal." Troublemaker felt ashamed of his blunder, so he promised to visit in a few days and rode off. Robbie traveled along the dirt road, passing one village after another. About halfway, he grew hungry and decided to stop in a small town to eat. He rode slowly through the market square, looking for pretty girls. Hot pies with meat, mushrooms, cabbage. The prince turned at the voice and saw a lovely girl with a thick golden braid and a basket full of hot, fragrant pies. "Hey, beauty," he called. The girl approached and smiled. She was very cute, so Robbie bought all her pies. He dismounted and sat down beside her. "What's your name, beauty?" "Catherine," the girl replied. "Do you live in this town?" "No, nearby at the mill." "So your father is a miller?" Catherine grew sad. "I'm an orphan. I live with my uncle. Oh, sir, if you only knew what a miser he is. He throws every bite I eat in my face. So I decided to bake pies and sell them. I'll save up money and leave for the capital. Robbie asked, would you like to go to the capital right now? I'd love to, sir. So Robbie mounted his horse, seated the girl in front of him, and off they went. At the inn called the Blue Woodpecker, the older brothers were already waiting for Robbie and were very surprised to see him with a beautiful but poorly dressed peasant girl. Meet my friend Catherine. These are my brothers, the princes. The girl was very upset to learn that Robbie had come to marry Princess Hortensia, but she didn't show it. At the inn, the princes tidied themselves up and headed to the palace. They were met by the king himself, Hortensia's father. Learning the purpose of their visit, the king grimaced. You really want to marry Hortensia? What's so surprising about that? She's so beautiful, said Edward. Beautiful she is, but her character is very difficult. All her suitors run away. Do you think I rule this kingdom? No, she does. Hortensia commands everyone here. Footsteps were heard, and two beautiful young women entered the hall. In one of them, Edward recognized the girl from the garden. The other was Princess Hortensia. The brothers bowed, and the king introduced the young women. These are my daughters, the eldest, Hortensia, and the youngest, Diana. Troublemaker and Robbie couldn't take their eyes off the elder sister, while Edward preferred the younger. Hortensia, these young men are asking for your hand. The king sighed. The princess smiled coldly. I am honored, but there are 3 of you, and I need time to choose the most worthy. I will inform you of my decision in a few days. The princes were given rooms in the palace. Robbie gave his room to Catherine and stayed with Edward, since living with Troublemaker would inevitably lead to fights. When dinner was brought to their rooms, the brothers were surprised not to be invited to the royal table. You see, our princess is in a bad mood today, explained a servant. In the morning, she was rude to the king. At noon, she reduced poor Diana to tears. The king thought it best if you stayed away from Hortensia for now. Tomorrow her mood will improve, we hope. But why does she quarrel with her family? Asked Robbie. There must be a reason. What reason does she need? The servant replied. Every day she finds something to pick on. Today she was angry that Diana wore a pink dress. She usually makes her sister wear dark colors so she doesn't overshadow her beauty. And the king displeased her with his cherry jam. She's tired of cherries, so she smashed the jam jar. What a character, noted Troublemaker. Just like Victoria, he thought but said nothing. Is she always like this? Edward asked. Yes, since early childhood. When she was little, she bit everyone, all her nannies. When she grew up, she started tormenting everyone with her whims and ruling the entire kingdom. Even the king can't handle her. Once, a linnet flew into the palace, a bird that sings beautifully. The princess put it in a cage, but the bird wouldn't sing in captivity. So she ordered it starved until it sang. And, Edward asked anxiously, did the bird die? It would have, but the younger princess released it. Oh, did Hortensia give her a beating for that? Edward smiled, thinking he hadn't been wrong in his choice. When the brothers were alone, Catherine, who had overheard everything from the next room, joined them. One of you will end up with a terrible wife, she said, turning to Robbie. I'd be sorry if it's you. But Robbie had already lost interest in marrying. After dinner, the brothers went to bed but couldn't sleep for a long time. Each was lost in thought. Edward forgot about his poem for the first time. His thoughts were all of Diana. Kind, sweet, and poetry-loving. Troublemaker decided to visit Count Norton the next day to see Victoria. He admired her fighting skill, and she was no less beautiful than Hortensia. Robbie, with his usual smirk, imagined what his parents would say when he married a peasant girl instead of a princess. In the morning at breakfast, Hortensia demanded attention. The day after tomorrow, there will be a celebration in my honor at the palace. A tournament will be held, and you must all participate. I will choose the winner and open the ball with him. Diana grew sad. She felt her sister would choose Edward. Sighing, she took a book and went to the garden. Robbie visited Catherine. She was mending Troublemaker's shirt, torn in yesterday's fight. She had taken to caring for all the brothers, ironing collars, sewing buttons. Edward's clothes required special work since he tugged at buttons when thinking. "Kate, let's go for a walk. See the city," Robbie said. Catherine looked up. "Have you been crying?" the prince asked. "A little." She began tidying away threads and needles. "I don't want that horrid princess to marry you, but I can't stop it." Robbie laughed. "My beauty is jealous." "Very funny," Catherine snapped. "I'm leaving." His laughter stopped. "If you leave, who will I marry?" Catherine eyed him suspiciously, thinking he was mocking her, but he was serious. "Would your parents allow you to marry me?" she asked. "I don't need their permission. I'll buy a mill, a vineyard, or open an inn. You'll bake pies, and we'll live happily." Edward realized the rhyme he'd been searching for 2 years was about to come to him. He went to the garden to think, met the younger princess, and forgot about his poem again. "You're sad again?" he asked. "Yes, I think I'm in love, but he's not free," Diana said sadly. "Is he married?" "No, but he has a fiancée." "Does he love her?" "I have no idea. Maybe he loves you?" Edward looked into her brown eyes, and she understood he was speaking of himself. Meanwhile, Troublemaker approached Count Norton's castle. But Victoria wasn't there. She had gone riding a new stallion that no one else dared mount. The count showed him around, speaking of his daughter. "She's a good girl, just very combative. No girlfriends as a child, she played with her brothers. Fights, chasing, climbing trees, tests of courage. She grew up a little devil in a skirt." At noon, Victoria returned, alive and well, the horse calm and obedient under her. "You again," she said gruffly. "Daughter, please be polite," begged the count. Victoria softened. At dinner, she changed into a charming white dress. Troublemaker couldn't imagine she could be so feminine and graceful. He looked at her with adoration. They discovered many shared interests. Walking in the count's park, Victoria said, "I still don't know your name. It's not a secret, is it? Forgive my rudeness." "My name is Richard," said Troublemaker, using his real name. Victoria looked him over. "That name doesn't suit you. I call you Troublemaker or Brawler." "Actually, everyone has called me Troublemaker since childhood." Victoria was pleased. "Well then, Richard is a name for a boring prince or a tedious king." "I must tell you, Victoria, you're right again. I am a prince," Troublemaker admitted. "So you came to marry one of our king's daughters?" "Not exactly. I wanted to, but I changed my mind." "Why?" Victoria persisted. "Because I've fallen in love with you," he said decisively and kissed her. Outraged, Victoria slapped him and ran off. Troublemaker decided there was no point in staying longer and returned to the palace only by dinner. Hortensia was angry as usual. She was annoyed that Troublemaker and Robbie hadn't come to lunch. Edward and Diana couldn't take their eyes off each other during meals, which infuriated her. "Where were you, may I ask?" she asked coldly. "I went riding," said Troublemaker. "And I was in town," said Robbie. Hortensia was offended and fell silent, then ordered, "Tomorrow, each of you will declare his love to me, and I will make my choice." That night, the brothers couldn't sleep, thinking how to gently explain to Hortensia that they no longer desired her hand. In the morning, they were gloomy and sleepy. "Fine suitors," grumbled Catherine, ironing Robbie's shirt. "With faces like that, you're ready for a funeral, not a wedding." "Why not just leave?" suggested Robbie. "We can't. Do you want to disgrace us?" Edward said sternly. "Did you finish your poem?" asked Troublemaker. "Yes." Edward smiled happily. "It turned out so simple. I only needed her name. It must be fate." A servant entered. "Princess Hortensia commands the princes to appear before her immediately." In the hall gathered the flower of the kingdom. On the throne sat Hortensia, flanked by the king and Diana. She smiled at the brothers. "I've decided not to delay my choice. You will each declare your love to me right here, and I will say whom I've chosen. Who will begin? Robbie was pushed forward. He held a guitar, intending to explain through song. The court fell silent, and the prince sang. Asterisk, everywhere I wandered, everywhere I've been, never fell in love before, but now I'm falling in. There's no peace within my soul. What is this that takes its toll? Asterisk. Robbie sang his favorite tune, adaptable to any occasion with different rhymes. He had cut all but one refrain, saving it for the finale. The verses listed his beloved's virtues. Hortensia smiled coldly, sure the compliments were for her. Then Robbie finished, asterisk. In the whole wide world there's none as fine as my Catherine. Asterisk, he added. Forgive me, princess, but I love another and cannot be your chosen one. Hortensia gasped. Never had anyone insulted her so publicly. Don't grieve, prince, I didn't choose you, she snapped. Edward and Troublemaker went cold. So it's one of us, whispered Edward. You go first. I'm scared, said the fearless Troublemaker. Edward stepped forward, took out his poem, cleared his throat, and looked at Diana. She sat still, pale and frightened, unable to believe he loved her. Asterisk, like a ray of sun amid the gloom, like an umbrella in a rainy sky, like a warm hearth in a chilly room, you appeared before my very eye. Asterisk. Everyone smiled. Hortensia nodded graciously. The poem was long and beautiful with perfect rhymes. Edward neared the end. Asterisk. I bow before you, sweet and grand. You are as fragrant as the air. Please take my heart and my hand. My beautiful Diana, hear my prayer. Asterisk. Edward knelt. The court applauded. Diana beamed with joy. Hortensia seethed with rage but tried not to show it. I ask for your younger daughter's hand, Edward declared. You've grown wiser, I see, said the pleased king. I agree. Marry and be happy. Hortensia rose from the throne, eyes flashing lightning. I suppose Prince Richard has also changed his mind? She asked in a trembling, furious voice. Exactly, Troublemaker nodded, delighted not to have to explain. Hortensia's eyes narrowed. I hope you three realize how deeply you've insulted me. Guards, take these failed suitors to prison and guard them well. Tomorrow I'll give them a merry entertainment. They will fight in the tournament against every knight who has applied. That's unfair. They'll die. The king intervened. They deserve death, shouted the enraged Hortensia. Sister, what are you doing? Come to your senses, begged Diana. Silence, traitor. Lock her up too. Diana was led away in tears. The king sighed but said nothing. He couldn't stand up to his domineering daughter. The princes were locked in a small cell with a door opening onto the battlefield. Robbie strummed his guitar, thinking of Catherine. The brothers remembered their beloveds and sighed. Spectators gathered for the tournament, townspeople, nobles, courtiers. Princess Hortensia announced a change. The winners of the tournament will be those who kill these three villains who insulted my honor. The princes were pushed onto the field. They were allowed their own weapons, but they were 3 against 20 knights, armed to the teeth and eager to win. Someone's about to get beaten, and I know who, said Robbie, watching the approaching opponents. We'll manage, Troublemaker bragged. Though he saw the odds were against them, the fight began. Troublemaker thrashed the first 2 so thoroughly that the knights decided not to come one by one but to attack en masse. Edward and Robbie fought well, but lacking Troublemaker's experience. Robbie's shirt soon turned red. I'm dying, he screamed and fell. Hortensia applauded. 2 guards carried him off the field. By rules, they should have taken him out of the city, but they wanted to watch the tournament. Why bother with him? He's dead anyway. Leave him here and let's go. They dumped Robbie in the grass and left. Catherine rushed to him, weeping. Robbie, my dear. Robbie opened one eye, saw only Catherine, and sat up. You're alive, she cried and kissed him. Well, I didn't collect all those cherries in the royal garden for nothing, he said, pulling out squashed berries from his shirt. I'll be more useful to my brothers alive. Let's pack. I said we should leave before it's too late. They sneaked to their room and hurriedly packed. Suddenly Diana entered. I thought you were locked up, Robbie said. No. The court pities me. They just hid me from my sister. I was at the tournament, she cried. How are they? Holding on for now. I came to beg you. Take me away. I can't live with Hortensia anymore. Why not? Robbie agreed. I plan to take someone else too, preferably alive. Back on the field, the brothers were barely holding off the knights. Help came unexpectedly. Victoria was watching with her father and brothers. When she saw Troublemaker on the field, she felt a strange anxiety. She was afraid for him. When Robbie was carried away, she grew truly frightened. Decisive as ever, she told her father she was going to help. Are you in love? Her father asked. It seems so, she replied, drawing her sword and rushing into battle. What's happening? Hortensia cried as a girl with a sword appeared on the field, felling knights with precise strikes. Who is she? What is she doing? A gossipy courtier bowed and said it was the count's daughter, with whom one of the princes had fallen in love. Hortensia smiled so nastily that even the bravest courtiers shuddered. Then let her stay. I'll enjoy watching that vile prince die before her eyes. Or perhaps she'll be killed first. The battle grew more intense. Back to back, the three fought against the entire troop. Victoria, Troublemaker, and Edward, gathering their last strength, fended off attacks. Count Norton's eldest son jumped up. I have only one sister. I won't let those scoundrels kill her. He charged in, followed by the second brother, who apologized to his father before running off. Sorry, Dad, but Victoria's in danger. Am I not her father? The Count exclaimed, drawing his sword and following his sons. Diana returned to Robbie and Catherine, reporting that 6 were now fighting. Cheered, they mounted horses and galloped to the field. Robbie rode straight in, scattering the remaining knights, followed by saddled horses. Hortensia guessed his plan. Guards! She screamed. Don't let them escape. Kill them all. The guards replied, Do it yourself. They fought bravely. We respect courageous people and won't touch them. The knights agreed, some sincerely, others tired of fighting and fearing for their lives. Hortensia, red with rage, fled. Everyone else congratulated the victors. The king invited them to stay and celebrate, but Edward said, No offense, your majesty, but we're going home. We don't like your palace, and we don't like your Hortensia. You'd better come to our wedding. To 2 weddings, Robbie corrected. To 3, Troublemaker added. So who among us will be king? Edward asked. None of us is marrying Hortensia. The younger brothers exchanged glances, smiled, and simultaneously nodded at the eldest. But you finished your poem, they said, and there was nothing more to argue.